Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Co-Creators of the New World. I am delighted today to have a dear friend, a high priestess who was my teacher in a priestess process, and just a fabulous co-creator here, AnyaaMcAndrew. Hello, Anya. How are you?
Hi, Kathleen. It's good to see you.
See you again. I know you've been traveling all over the world. It's been interesting to follow you. I'm going to read your bio to people because, you know, people want to know what the heck is a priestess, for one thing, and you're so much more than what people could imagine. So let me read your bio here. AnyaaMcAndrew is a seasoned psychotherapist, an ordained high priestess, and a spiritual guide residing in Western North Carolina. For the past 18 years, Anya has created and facilitated several versions of priestess initiation work in the US and internationally, integrating a lifetime of therapeutic work with women. Anya is also a master shamanic astrologer, an imago couples therapist, a trauma specialist, and a sacred sexuality educator. Steeped in the feminism of the early 70s, yay! Anya now calls herself a divine feminist. I love that. She enjoys bringing her 44 years of wisdom and experience to continuing to facilitate circles, the guiding personal journey and the journey of the couple, co-leading brand adventures around the world, and her own inner and outer sacred marriage. She can be contacted through her website. You want to say what that is, Anya?
Sure. It's pretty easy to remember. It's called Goddess on the Loose. Just a .com.
And you are a goddess on the loose. I remember when I found out about you and called you, and I said, how the heck did you become who you are? And sure enough, I mean, I've sort of followed in your footsteps. So
it's good to be a goddess on the loose.
It is good to be a goddess on the loose. I'm just going to read a little bit from my book that really relates to the work that you've been doing for a very long time, and to divine feminism, and as we are coming to know it now, because it's evolving all the time. The solar feminine is the creative, passionate, focused, pulsating, and radiant feminine energy that is needed on the planet at this time, and we are seeing it happen. Mm-hmm. This is the energized feminine that is fueled by compassion and purpose, and creates powerful, positive change without war. The lunar qualities of the feminine, intuition, listening, nurturing, and tending, became very strong as the patriarchy rose up because they had to go underground. Women have hidden their power in these beautiful gifts of the divine feminine for thousands of years. Now we must stop being invisible with those gifts and learn to use our masculine energies to bring them forth into the world. This is the energy that became activated when I was in Peru. And that's really how I found out about the solar feminine. And for a woman to fully embody the solar feminine, she really has to go up against a lot of conditioning, because as you and I both know, women in the past who embodied that energy were often burnt at the stake and things like that. So I guess my first question I want to say is, you know, how did you become a goddess on the loose? How in the world did this happen?
I don't know. Really? I don't know. I just followed my soul's path, I guess. You know,
that's
the little
nudgings here
and there.
Yeah. That's the answer. You have been able to do that.
Yes. And I really have always had sacred work. So, you know, once I found sacred work, it just blossomed for me. And so I actually could use the focus of being a psychotherapist to add a little bit of this and some of that and some of this, and create this synergy that, you know, I continue to create. I continue to you know, sort of stir that big cauldron of you know, synthesized energies, and come up with the soup of who I am, as we all do. You know, we just follow those inner promptings. It's really important to do that.
And so really it's becoming this goddess on the loose and a priestess, a shamanic high priestess. It's really been more of a remembering who you are than figuring it out.
Yes, absolutely. Because, you know, we have have lost our connection to the divine feminine. And really, you know, the title of this, I decided to use the divine feminine, a view from the edge. And, you know, it's a view from the edge because women are still uncomfortable, even though the divine feminine has come in since, you know, I started doing this work. I'm sure that, you know, we're close to the same age, and I'm sure that you have just also sat back and went, wow, here it comes. It's coming. Yes,
yeah,
it's coming, you know,
yeah,
but there's still not very much talk about the priestess. And this is an ancient archetype that, from my perspective, you know, really covers a lot of territory. It's the medicine woman, it's the curandera, it's the astrologer, it's the temple dancer, it's the sexual healer. It's so many, the healer of all kinds, so many of the archetypes that women are stepping into now as they step into their personal and their spiritual power. But this word priestess, you know, women have one or two responses to it. One is that they're drawn, like I was.
Yeah,
priestess. I want to do that, you know.
Right in.
Kathleen and I were talking about this in Ireland, you know. We oftentimes, you know, recall this memory when we're together. And when I met Kathleen, you know, I said, you know, tell me I've heard about this priestess process. Tell me about it. And I said, I want to do that. And she said, that's exactly the same response that she had. But there's this other response that women have, which is, ooh, that sounds scary, or that sounds terrifying even, because we have this 6,000 year aberration called patriarchy that really pushed us underground. So we've gone through 5,000 to 6,000 years in our soul lineage of forgetting, and in our genetic heritage. You know, we were told really by our mothers, you know, be quiet or be hurt. You know, pull it in, 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 which I think, yes, which was kept us safe. But it also created a very, you know, acquiescent, quiet feminine that is actually, you know, the counterpoint. It's not, we don't want to diminish the lunar feminine in any way. No. But it's a counterpoint to the solar feminine. And now, because of the solar feminine has come alive, and women are better able and willing to stand in their leadership and their radiance, then, you know, we have this full spectrum of the feminine available. It's like all places on the wheel, you know, are now available, and we can take leadership in whatever domain we want to take leadership. You know, maybe it's in our families, helping our parents cross over. You know, that's priestess work. You know, when you're there working with your parents to help them cross over, and you're bringing all these tools to bear, and you're you know, you're pulling in these resources, or, you know,
or on the other end, being a doula on either end, really. You know, that transition. It's like there's so much liminal space that people need help in, like that in between.
Yes,
that's what we're made for. That, you know, obviously I was the one that said I want that right away, and I'd been doing it already, though, like you know, like we were already living our soul's purpose, and then we found out we were priestesses, but we were priestesses before we knew it.
Yes. And you know, in my work, I don't make anyone a priestess. I don't even call it a training. It's a process, because it's a process of remembering. And that's really what it is. And women who are called, and it's not I don't think it's a huge thing because of that, because you really do need to be called. And because, like you said, you're already doing it. And for some women, it's really more of a, you know, I want to understand women's mysteries. I don't understand what feminine power is really about. So it's that, you know, and for other women, it's their ministry. It's because priestess is another word for minister. And so instead of calling myself a minister, I call myself an ordained priestess.
Yeah.
And I do have a church, and I do have a, you know, a not-for-profit church, but it's, you know, I'm in a sense attempting to put that priestess energy out there as another alternative word for minister, because it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think, and I've literally had this happen where people go, priestess? Why do you think there's such a fear, for not only by women but by men, but by both? What's the turnoff?
Yeah. You know, we laughingly, lovingly call it in my work the P word.
The P word.
And you know, we laugh sometimes because I've actually had some experience of being persecuted, you know, online by a man, actually a man who was the woman he was dating broke up with him while she was going through a high priestess process, a Magdalene process.
Yeah.
And he went after me, and he went after the process. And so we call that priestess envy.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But you know, that's the masculine piece. I've also gotten feedback, and I'm sure everyone who does priestess work has gotten this feedback. Well, how can you be a priestess, you know, only going through a year-long process, or a 9-month process, or a 10-day process, or whatever the format seems to be, an immersion process? And it's because we can remember all. We can bring it all in. So there's that criticism. And I think it's also a fear, you know, it's a fear of women's power. So priestess just adds, you know, kind of ups the ante in terms of women's power, because then you're talking about not only personal power, but you're talking about spiritual power. Oh my gosh, what is she going to do to me? Is she going to put a spell on me? You know, and this is not witchcraft. We're not talking about witchcraft. We're talking about women walking in their ability, their natural ability to stand on the earth, to honor all things, to see all things as sacred, to walk in their life in a sacred way, to have an access. It's like all of a sudden having permission, giving yourself permission to have access to the dimensions.
Yes, that's
to all the domains.
It's permission, and there is, instead of getting a PhD in priestess, you know, there's an initiation process, and initiation is really somewhat from a former time. We don't think of that now, although, you know, really and truly every time there's a graduation, it's initiation. You know,
it's a rite of passage. It's an initiation, yeah.
But with true initiation, you're really called to it.
Yes.
And you have to step away from prior conditioning to be able to be initiated. And, you know, I will say that when I think of Goddess on the Loose, after I was initiated, all hell broke loose in my life.
Yes.
Because we called it in.
Yes. Yes.
And I knew it. And you said that. And everyone was aware of it. There were 5 of us who were initiated at one time in my group. And all hell broke loose, so that everything that was not me started to crumble and go away. And there was a great deal of destruction in my life and loss. And prior to, I lost everything. It's in the book. I can admit that. And in that place where I had lost everything, my health, my practice, my home, my money, I didn't know until that moment, and I remember it. It was a very pivotal moment. It was a point of power to realize that I had everything I needed, and it was all inside me.
That's beautiful, Kathleen.
And I don't think I could have really experienced it that same way if I hadn't gone through the initiation as a priestess.
Yes.
Because I took
Yeah. I was actually in a dark night of the soul, facing a lot of my own shadow when I started facilitating circles. So I was in a marriage that 3 weeks after I got into it, I realized I had made a horrible mistake. And I had put all of my money, we'd put all of our money together in a big house. We were, doing our work out of this huge house. There was no way I could leave. I mean, I had to stick it out for 3.5 years before I could get out. But it was the priestess work that actually saved me, because I could feel a higher purpose. And I'm so grateful, because if I hadn't had it, I was actually telling my partner that story again this morning on our walk. And it was just, so there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of dark nights of the soul. And that's part of being a shamanic priestess, is understanding those levels, that they're really, if you want to boil it down to just three worlds, there's the lower worlds, which is the place of profound transformation. And that's where we experience those dark nights of the soul. And really the planet, we're all going through, the underworld right now. It's a very deep descent that we are in. And so, to understand that we go through those descents, personally is one thing, but to understand and to hold space for the whole planet, and to know that, the people around you, I mean, we're seeing it everywhere, people getting sick, dying, what's happening to the food supply, what's happening to the animals, to our companion animals. It's really a dark night of the soul. So those dark nights of the soul are going to happen to us no matter what. And if we consciously know that is a part of this earth walk, especially now, if you're here now, that's just a part of what you're here to do. That's really important. And then there's the middle world, which is this world, which is ordinary reality. And sometimes ordinary reality works. And in these times, oftentimes it feels like more of a descent. And then there's the celestial worlds, and the celestial worlds are, everything's perfect, right? We just love those people who say that, right? Yeah. Oh, it's all perfect.
All good. It's all good. It's all good.
So good. It was obviously meant to happen, Kathleen. Right. And that's true, but it's so hard. It's really not so easy to integrate.
To just bite that piece off, right? Because it's all happening at the same time. And yes, it's all true that it's all perfect the way it's happening, and it's painful for some people, and there's destruction before creation,
Yeah.
So and I think what I do write is the priestess process probably affected me more than many other things in my life, probably more than anything. And I'd never, other than my marriage, I had never taken a vow. I took a vow. Yeah. And I read about a vow. A vow is like when you basically set your compass on something. You shift your destiny in the direction of the vow you take, right? And to have taken that vow, when I was in the darkest part of it, and I thought, this can't be the end. I took this vow. I said I was going to help usher in the new world, and I'm sick, and I have nothing, and I feel all washed up, and I even was working for a little while in a clinic, in a room with no windows. I'd never worked for anybody since the beginning of for 30 years, and yet when I was doing it, all the while, that priestess consciousness was like, exactly, this is the humility that you needed to have to be able to step out even more. Don't think you're all that. You be humble about this. So that was a really rough road, and yet the entire time I was getting stronger. And I really want people to get that I've watched you go through your ups and downs. You've known about mine, and there are many people doing that right now. And you don't have to be a priestess to know that this isn't the thing that they don't teach us in school, and our parents don't teach us about the dark, the shadow, the darkness. They only want us to live in the light and live with all the potential. And we have to marry those parts. We have to marry all of it, the masculine and the feminine. Let's talk about that, Anya, because I'm really seeing the need for that inner marriage in women right now.
Oh, yeah, so much so. It's really a big theme. And the reason it's a big theme is because this is the time we're coming into. You know, we had the matrilineal time, and that lasted, we're finding out now that lasted maybe 200,000 years. Can you imagine?
That long?
200,000 years on this planet of peace with no discoveries that had anything to do with war. Just, you know, but the feminine was pretty much, you know, some societies were probably matriarchal. In other words, the feminine was definitely, certainly the feminine deity, the goddess, was central. And then this 6,000 years of patriarchy. So, you know, we've got to, and if you think about that 6,000 years, that 200,000 years, probably it was time for men, right? It was time for men to have their chance. Mm-hmm. And, you know, some would say, well, they really screwed it up. But, you know, it look what it's brought us. You know, there are many gifts that the patriarchy has brought us. I personally love flush toilets and my hot tub. And, you know, there's a lot of technology that's really good if we could use it in a mature way. Yeah. That 6,000 years was really a condensed kind of intensity, right? Yeah. And so now we're coming into sacred marriage. We're coming into the masculine and the feminine, you know, standing side by side as equals, as partners. And first that has to happen within ourselves, right? We have to, as women, you know, we can be the seductive little girl, which is sort of the, you know, David Data's first stage feminine, you know, my daddy, you know, and be my daddy, right? And we've all been there or regressed to that in relationships of all kinds. Absolutely. Many women still live in that place, you know, they're the kept woman. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's a choice. Yeah. And then there's the second stage, which was feminism, right? Feminism was, you know, my masculine is on board, and, you know, don't tell me that I'm sexy, tell me that I'm smart, you know. I need to be recognized for my masculine. That's a very valid stage. Yeah, but if you get stuck there, you can stay really angry. Yeah. And that doesn't work either. But there's a lot of that going on right now in the world, and that's good. Mm-hmm. You know, it's really good because women need to step up. We need to step up. And you know, when Trump was elected, I said, finally, the feminine is going to step up, because he's going to make them so angry that they're going to have to step up. And so that second stage feminine is really happening now, you know. But the third stage is really having your masculine on board, your healthy masculine on board, and your feminine, which is all about love, which is all about unity, consciousness, and relatedness and connections, you know, not just connecting, but connections. Yeah. And those two walking hand in hand, we can birth a new world. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I'm going to do the best that I can, you know, to continue making progress in that direction. So, you know, that's one of the things we work with a lot in my shamanic priestess process is, you know, what's a healthy masculine? We're not here to reject the masculine. We're not here to judge the masculine. We're here to bring a healthy masculine on board and to love the masculine and to connect with it, but mostly to connect with our own masculine, which allows us to make really healthy decisions that doesn't override the body, that doesn't override the heart, that doesn't override the inner child or the inner children, and takes all of that into account when we make decisions, which has not been the case.
It's the most important work women have to do.
Yeah.
It is. And I know that many of the women who are fighting out there now are developed in the second stage and not necessarily in the third. Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
Yes, it is okay.
It's evolutionary. It's also developmental, because when you're younger, you may be, you know, we're older. We
Well, we need warrior. We need the warrior Amazon archetype.
Yeah.
We really need her. And I did that for several years. It was a version of the solar feminine that I did for several years. And it's only been in the last 3 or 4 years that I've really consciously laid down the sword and said, it's not mine to do anymore.
Right.
I've already done it.
Younger women can do that.
Yes.
And we're part of the transition team anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not necessarily the implementers.
Yes.
And having been born in the 50s, right? Growing up and literally feeling as if a seed was planted inside me that would start to sprout at the same time that many other seeds sprouted and boomers, right? Here we are. We've waited for this for so long. So long. We've known. I mean, I got a little scared in the 80s. You know, I thought, oh, but by the 90s, I could see things were starting to move again. And then as technology came into play, then, you know, I was quite certain that it wasn't a delusion or, you know, that it's real. Mm-hmm. And now I have lots of younger clients, and I have younger women in my circles, and I'm like, wow, they are powerhouses. And, you know, much of the work we've done, they don't have to do.
Yes.
You know, because they literally have been standing on our shoulders. And now, you know, it's, you know, we're way showers, we're a transition team, and it's new work. And I don't know about you, but it's sort of this legacy work, certainly, but I can't not think about the world, right? Because part of what happens if you've been doing your work all along, your global heart starts to awaken, not just the personal heart, but the global heart. And you can't not think of everybody. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's my book. I started out, and it wasn't even conscious that I was writing a template for a new world. I knew that I needed to write. And as I wrote, and had gone down to Colombia to do some plant medicine, and I had some journeys, and I got up one day and I went, oh my God, this is so much bigger than, oh my God. And I got the whole download all at once, and then I had to go try to write it, you know. And people, you know, you get more downloads when you've accepted that you're a priestess, you know. And you call them in. So and you've started really going out into the world and around the world now more. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I do a trip every year to the Celtic lands, pre-Celtic, Neolithic Celtic lands, which are, you know, the British Isles, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Great Britain. And I do that with my astrology teacher, Daniel Giamario, who created shamanic astrology. I know you're going to have Kaylin Castell on here, and she's the co-founder of Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. Put in a plug for them.
Yes.
And we call it Renaissance of the Sacred Feminine, because our intention is to really go back pre-patriarchy and to look at these monuments, these 5, 6, 7, 8,000-year-old monuments on the land, which are really altars and temples on the land that the Neolithic people left to us. And they understood so much. They understood the night sky. They had, you know, prosperous societies, and they were not hunter-gatherers. They did hunting and gathering. They did cultivation of crops. They're really quite extraordinary monuments that connect us. These stones, we call our trips Renaissance of the Sacred Feminine: Stars, Stones, and Stories.
Oh, beautiful.
And so that's a joy for me to co-facilitate every year. We just we do some ceremonies, do a sacred marriage ceremony. We do an ancestor ceremony. Yeah. But we also call in local experts. So Daniel and I get to really enjoy and continue to learn and really just connect through patriarchy back to these ancestors of ours that left us these messages in the stones and in the land. And it's called Renaissance of the Sacred Feminine because, of course, as a priestess, you know that the land represents the feminine. Absolutely. And the sky represents the masculine. So there's this connection that we make between, because many of these sites are they're astronomical sites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah.
they connect the stars and the land.
They were astronomers and astrologers, and they had, these are my people, and I haven't been back to Ireland in a long time, so I'm called to. I've been doing a lot of my shamanic healing work and all that in South America, and not going back to Ireland since I got married many years ago.
Well, we won't go to Ireland again. We rotate. So next year we're going to Scotland,
good.
Where there's an amazing stone circle called Callanish. This is the second largest stone circle in the Western Hemisphere and or in the Northern Hemisphere, and which I guess is also the West. And then we're going to the wilds, the Highlands of Scotland, to explore some more. And then the next year we'll be going to Wales again. And all of these places have amazing sites. I mean, they're amazing sites all over the world, but you know, I'm 50% Scotch Irish, and you know, it's always called to me, you know, those lands. It's part of my soul's lineage. I've probably had more lifetimes in those lands than anywhere else. So we all have our places, but there seems to be, we just came back from 2 weeks in Ireland, which was the best trip yet. It was the best excursion yet. And then been trying to get to Egypt for a priestess journey, and it has not happened yet. But we're looking to 2019, and we don't have any dates yet set, but that will be a team of 3 of us, 3 priestesses, an Egyptian priestess who was born and raised, young Egyptian priestess who was born and raised in Egypt, Yasmin Hannah, and dear priestess sister of mine and myself, and we'll be leading a 2-week trip, including a week down the Nile on a boat. So
you are on the loose. You really are. I have to say that. Oh my gosh.
So, but you can only do so many of those big trips a year.
Yeah.
And I don't want to travel so much. I mean, I don't want to let me put it this way. I don't want to be so busy as much as I was. I'm not in a place where I feel all that ambitious anymore. My solar feminine is on a slow simmer. And
very appropriate for this age.
She can rise up, you know, she can rise up when she needs to, but mostly I love being at home. I have a beautiful home that is also, Isis Cove has a retreat center. So every year I do a 10-day immersion, accelerated shamanic priestess process. And, you know, I limit it to 6 or 7 women and a couple of apprentices, and that's it. You know, it's the only priestess work I do every year. So, you know, from weekends of flipping around the country, you know, for years and years, to 1 10-day.
Yes, that's it. So if any women are called, if you feel that calling, get in touch with Anya.
Yeah, it's in the spring. It's in early April, and it's in the Smoky Mountains.
It's gorgeous. I fell in love with the entire area.
Yeah, it is a very special area.
So great to connect with you, and I'm so grateful and that you're sharing this, and that so many. I know that young women who are drawn to the priestess work. I'm hoping you'll hear from some people.
Well.
What's your big message that you want to give to our listeners right now? Something that they can take away, just some, not even an exercise, just something that they can put in their heart, a knowing.
Just to follow, I think it would be what we talked about in the beginning, to follow your soul's prompting. And if you don't know what that is, to, you know, find some teachers that you trust, a teacher or some teachers that you trust. Sometimes, you know, it's one teacher, it's one process, and then you might add something else onto it, and then you let go of that, you follow something else. And if you just follow the energy, you will get to where you're going. You'll get to your sacred work. You'll get to your destination. You'll get to the relationship of your dreams. And also remember to stand in your spiritual power, especially at really powerful timings. Those would be, you know, the equinoxes and the solstices, the eclipses, the new moons. Those would be the times, and the cross quarter days, which would be like Beltane and Samhain, which is coming up, which is Halloween. And to stand, you know, to use those timings, because those timings are cracks between the worlds. And in those cracks between the worlds, put out your intention in present time to the universe and say, don't say I want, don't say I need, just say, I am calling in. I'm ready for it now. Bring it in.
Bring it on. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much.
Anything about, you want to do anything about what we talked about before at this point?
This is great.
Okay.
This is so sufficient for people. And that
right. Wonderful.
Calling it in and those cracks between things, that's a real gift to people. So I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will see you somewhere.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.